Joining us this morning, Titania Jordan.
Tatiana Jordan. Did I get the name right? Jordan?
Titania.
Titania. Okay.
Titania. All right. It's Titania Jordan.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Connect. I'm here today with Craig Hyde, CEO of Rigor. Kind of a big deal, right?
Kind of a big deal. Not really, though.
We recently just talked off camera about some awesome accolades you just received.
We
Talk
did.
that
we
up.
did. Well, so the big one that just came out, I think it was official today or yesterday, but we got the news on Friday, is that our company made the Inc. 500 list, which is the fastest growing companies in America. And so we were number 430 on that list. It was pretty exciting to see that come through.
Way to represent our city and young people doing big things.
Yeah, you know, there's a handful of Atlanta companies on that list, but we're happy to be on there too.
It's awesome. Congratulations
Thanks
on
a
that.
lot.
So for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to read from my list so I don't screw it up, Rigor is a digital experience monitoring and optimization platform. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does
Can you
that
turn
really
that into
mean?
English for me? Sure.
Yeah.
So basically we have a platform that enables companies to help manage their digital experiences that their customers or their partners experience when they're working with their brands. So if you go to any of these CIO conferences these days, everyone's always talking about digital transformation.
Yes.
And it's a big buzzword going around, but it basically means, you know, the old way of doing commerce, everything's switching to e-commerce, and the old way of doing media, everything's switching to digital media. And it's not just digital media and e-commerce, even though that's where we got our roots, but it's also, you know, every business is becoming revolutionized by technology. And so the platform that we built helps companies manage the experiences of what people are doing on the site, how does it look to them, is it loading fast? I mean, I don't know. Have you ever left a website because it took too long to load?
Absolutely.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that everybody gets that it's a problem, but it's a hard challenge to solve for a number of reasons. So we build a platform to enable companies to be able to keep track of all that and make sure that they deliver the best experiences.
Now, what was the impetus to create Rigor?
Oh, I don't even know if we have enough time for that. But no, so I've been in this space for a really long time. I was computer engineering at Georgia Tech,
Woohoo!
right down the street, and I always knew I wanted to get into the business side of engineering. Mm-hmm. And so my career path took me here, and I ended up initially working with a handful of startups who worked in the telco space and then the applications, and I've kind of moved around. I worked at a really large company in our industry, and then I just saw everything changing when this buzzword, another buzzword, the cloud comes out. The big thing that changes in the cloud from a technical standpoint is that the companies who run things in the cloud can no longer go and touch and restart a server, and so it's easier to get up and running, but there's less control, and it's different types of stuff. So I had spent my career up to that date, up to starting Rigor, in these big data centers. Right down the street was AutoTrader, was actually where I had the eureka moment. In AutoTrader, something went down and their phones were blowing off the hook, and we had, at my old company, we sold them millions of dollars of software, and we showed on the dashboards on the screen, and we said, yeah, everything works, all lights are green, and the phones were still ringing. The site was down. And so it kind of hit me. I'm like, oh, something not here broke the site. Okay, there needs to be something like what we're doing, but for out there. And so that's kind of where the light bulb went off, and got started, connected with a local entrepreneur named David Cummings, who helped us get started.
Hey, David.
And I don't know, some people may have heard of him.
You may know him.
But he was really helpful in getting us off the ground and kind of helping us build a company out of that idea. And that was like 7 years ago.
Wow.
But it's been a wild ride.
That's awesome. Let's talk about your growth over the past few years. How many employees do you have now?
So we're in the 30 range now.
Okay.
So it's easy to grow
So
percentage.
you haven't graduated from the
small.
tech village yet.
They're going to have to throw us out. And yeah, so and that does happen if you get too many people in there.
Bye-bye.
But we're not in a big rush. Sorry, all the CRE people who are watching this. We're not in a rush to get out of the tech village, but one day we know we'll have to be there. We started out of the back of Pardot office, 2 of us, and then we moved down to ATDC in Midtown. And we outgrew that. We moved to Tech Village, and we've had a dozen offices between all those layouts within the past, in the time, and so we'll just keep moving up.
Are you on the 5th floor now?
We were, and we ran out of space, and so we moved back down to the 3rd floor, where Terminus was at.
Okay.
And so they made a bunch of room, and then they got thrown out, so we took all their space.
Lovingly, but thrown out.
Graduated.
Yeah, graduated.
Right, exactly.
And so let's talk about both the makeup of your employees and then kind of your culture and how you hire. First of all, would you say it's like a 50-50 marketing engineering, or what is the core employee base made of, skill set wise?
If I'm just roughing it off the top of my head, it's about 30% product and engineering, maybe 30% on the delivery side and operations, and then 30, or call it 33% split across the board in sales and marketing. So it's split up pretty evenly. Our biggest group is probably on the sales and marketing side, but we're always looking to grow across the board. That's just where it is today.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're one of the fastest growing companies in the U.S., clearly that's really cool for anybody who wants to work for you. So on that note, what do you look for in people beyond hard skill set?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what do we look for beyond hard skill set? That's a very small subset of what we look at when we look for people to hire. And we've had, the culture is really important to us, right? So we've been the #1 place to work in Atlanta, and we're on and off the list, and depending on the year and what the votes tally up, and
who paid who?
What day we get the surveys out.
Right.
But the core of what we look for in a person is kind of their own startup in many ways, right? So we're a growth-based company, and that's a big tenet to what we do, is we want to constantly grow. And not only the revenue and the number of people, but also internally, and the individuals themselves want to grow and be a part of something that gets bigger. And it's very different from if you look at your traditional software company or just any company in general where they're hiring and they say, can you do this function? Can you press this button, right? Are you really experienced at doing this one thing? And with a growth company, it's very different, because 5 years ago, there was 3 of us. And there's that, you just can't scale that. So we need to find people who are talented, obviously that they're intelligent and they can figure things out, but the way that we kind of articulate that is that they have track record of success at different things that they do. And then we look for genuine personalities. So if we see a track record of somebody figuring out, jumping into something, figuring it out, being successful, and moving on to the next, and when we start to piece it all together, it's like we don't have to double check anything. We know this person is genuine, they have high integrity, those kind of aspects. Those are the type of people that fit best in our organization. If we look at the people who have thrived, they have held those true. And then if we look at the people who haven't worked out, it hasn't always been the case.
Awesome. So leadership is like a thing, right? You don't just become a leader and thrive at it. So, I guess it can sometimes feel kind of cheesy when people are like, how do you become a good leader? But
it's such a hard question.
I know, but so obviously you think about it, and are there any books that you're reading or any sort of mentors that you've reached out to kind of help you, stay on top of your game?
The answer could take another hour. Stacks of books. teams of mentors.
Okay.
Paid and informal and advisors and all that type of stuff. But it's interesting in the journey of a professional career. It's a pretty standard path of you get really good at doing something, and then you become so good that you manage other people who are doing that thing, and that those two jobs don't typically. They're not the same thing. It's like, hey, you were really good at English. Now you're going to be an engineering major, right? Because you were really good at this thing in high school. Now go to tech and figure out Calc 3. They're so different because being an individual contributor is all about being an expert at your domain, and then a manager is about enabling other people to be experts while also making sure that things are, setting good guidelines, you're giving good expectations, and then I think a leader is another step above where you're creating somewhere to go, and you're creating a vision for a team to go towards. And I think all those different components are different fields of expertise. And the one book that I read recently that Pete Mansell, who's our VP of Sales, recommended, it's called The Leadership Test, and it breaks leadership down into some simple concepts of persuasion and not coercion, strong arming.
Big difference.
Persuasion and not manipulation, which is kind of tricking people, but getting a team aligned on a goal, and then accountability, which is making sure that you're following through.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the simple piece that I think of in my mind, but it's an ongoing challenge for me. It's an ongoing journey to get better at it.
Awesome. It's like you rehearsed or something. Like, you're really good at answering these questions. This is awesome.
There we go. I think about it a lot.
Well, that's good. Let's talk about some either challenges you faced early on. With a 7-year company, obviously it's not always been ups, and especially in the startup world. Like, you have ups and downs sometimes within one day. So yeah, either some challenges you faced early on and how you overcame them, and by you I mean you and your team, or maybe something you're facing right now as your company has grown exponentially, and how you hope to kind of knock that out.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you read our press releases, you would know that we have had no challenges, and it's all up and to the right. So I don't know why you asked that question.
Caption that.
Right. But in reality, obviously, there's challenges going
Right.
through there, and each stage of the business has a lot of different types of challenges, and it's almost like that, what I was saying, where you're good at doing your job, then you have to figure out how to manage people and lead people. It's almost like that. On day one, it was a guy named Hubert Liu and myself, and he was our CTO who started with us, and he just moved on to work on a different project, which is great for him, moving on to somewhere to start a new challenge. But we were just locked in the back of an office developing software and selling it, and trying to find out our space in the market. And that took probably 18 months until we really figured out where the direction that we were going. And then it was rinse and repeat. So it was a lot of heroics and do whatever it takes, all-nighters, just us. Then we brought on some help with the go-to-market on the sales, and then we slowly started building up. After a while, we ran into the issue, hey, none of us have ever managed, and it's just a team sitting in the room, everyone's doing stuff, and as it grows, there's communication breakdowns and things like that. So you have to put systems in place to make sure we all communicate. And now we're getting to that point where we're really itching to get to the next level. And so when I look at the Inc. 500, it's great to get there, and the team that we had to get there, I think there was a total of 8 people by the end of 2013, which is when it started. And some are alum now who have moved on to new things, and we still have a solid core who are leaders in the company and really doing great things. So they were very instrumental in getting us to the next level. To the level that we were at. And now we're trying to figure out what do we do to get to the next level. And obviously the same people, they're growing as well. And so that's a key thing, making sure that people are able to grow from their day one job to leadership roles to, whatever it is that comes next. And, but yeah, we're trying to figure out, hey, how do we add another zero to what we're doing? And how do we get a company that can support hundreds of people and not just dozens. And that's really what our mindset is looking at. So we're looking at, we always get to 20 million in 2020. And we know if we get there, it may not be exactly on the dot, but if we're in that direction, we know that we're growing at the rate that we'll have a good environment. We know we'll be doing our jobs and serving our customers.
I love it. So obviously, it's not just a 9 to 5, it's not 40 hours a week. Your whole life, you live, eat, breathe, sleep, Rigor. But you've got to have some sort of downtime. You've got to have some way to kind of relax and recenter. So on that note, what do you do for entertainment or to have fun and just kind of not be focused on work all the time?
I don't know.
Crickets. Cue the crickets now.
I literally live 200 yards from my office, which is great. I can go on the weekends and go play at the office and then go home. Well, one thing that's coming up is I'm getting married in a couple weeks, so
congratulations.
Thank you. That'll be exciting. So we'll be going on a big honeymoon. But I do like to travel. I'll get out, travel internationally at least once a year.
Awesome.
And unplug for a week or so.
Good.
But
very, very good.
I feel like you have to do that every once in a while.
You have to get out of your own hole, you got to see the bigger picture. What is some of the best business advice that you've received over the years from any of the various mentors or advisors that you have?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I know, I came up with it.
Right there on the spot. I would say there's a few, and think about some of the mentors and advisors, and David Cummings is very adamant about developing a big culture, a solid culture, and his take is of all the things in a business, that's the only thing that the entrepreneur can control. And I like to take that and also put kind of a not personal spin on it, but take it down a level, and it's really, really cheesy or like quintessential, but to say it's all about the people. But I don't mean that in a hand-wavy thing. It's more like the individuals. If you have great people and they're working alongside of you, that's all that matters, right? If you go out to Silicon Valley, they always talk about their competitive advantage or the capital or something that they have. But it's like, who made all that, right? You don't have that until people start making it. So I think that's really important. And yeah, I think that's one of the ones that's stuck with me the most.
That's great. Rewinding a little bit for anybody who might be tuning in that didn't quite catch the beginning, let's do a use case for a company and how Rigor would fulfill their needs. So, hi, Craig, I'm a company and I heard about Rigor. What are my challenges and how are you going to solve them?
Oh, I thought you were going to throw something out there and I was going to have to case study style solve it.
Well, I could do that, but I feel like I just want to really tee it up for you.
We probably have them. So we've got banks of these case studies, but one that sticks in my mind because we learned about it very recently. It's not published or anything like that, but we're looking to. So CNN is one of our early big customers. It's a well-known brand. And one of the challenges that we solve is that when we talk about the cloud, it just means not here, but it also means that there's components everywhere. So when CNN goes to publish a story, there's a journalist that writes the story. They publish it to one system that then propagates it into their website system that gets translated into web, app, mobile, all that stuff, and pushed out into more systems, and then goes out onto a company called Akamai that hosts it and physically delivers the data to your phone or to your desktop. And when Trump got elected, it was one of the highest traffic days ever on CNN.com.
Oh my gosh.
And initially the traffic was so high that there was some glitches in that whole workflow that publishers published they couldn't publish things out to the internet, right? And that's kind of a big deal during something timely and a big deal like that. So anyways, they had our systems looking and making sure all that's working properly, and so they were able to make some fine tunes and make sure that the news flowed on election day. And it's so something that sounds very, very nuanced and technical on the back end. If they don't have visibility into how all these things are working, the news doesn't flow. Like it's pretty wild. It's kind of
their purpose for being.
Right. So that's a simple case study. The more generic one is that we can help companies make their websites faster, and that's an easy dial for us to turn, and it's black and white, the numbers, and it's common sense. People don't like to wait for stuff, but the slower websites are, the less people buy, the faster they are, the more they buy. So all kinds of e-commerce companies use us to make sure that experience works right.
Awesome, thank you for that. As we conclude, I just wanted to know if there's anything kind of big on the horizon, whether it's the last half of this year and the next few years that you guys might be branching out into or working on, any sort of like nugget you can drop, nugget of exclusivity, and it's okay if you can't. And if you can't, then maybe another route we could go is, you're a successful executive at a successful company.
We're working on it.
Well, but
we have a long way to go. It's
yeah,
day one.
Well, but if there's anything that everybody out there watching in internet land could do to kind of help you and pour into you and your employees, let us know, because there's nothing like the internet. They can really rally around you and support you in any way, shape, or form. So, any of those things I just threw out, let's end on that.
Yeah, wrap it up. You talked about the two most important things in any business. I mean, it's the people internally and the customers that you have and the use cases that you have. So if there are people that want to join a growing startup in Buckhead with right here, got it.
No, I'm talking to them. I'm like, you listen up right now, people, because Craig is talking.
Right there. Yeah, but seriously, if there's people who are looking to grow join a fast-growing tech startup here in Buckhead, we're always looking for great people, and then we're obviously always looking to grow the business and help more companies out. So if there are digital properties or any companies that you know of that are going through digital transformation, that's a perfect cue for us to work in that space.
So y'all need to call Rigor. That's all I'm saying.
Rigor.com.
Craig, thank you so much for being here and for
Thanks
your time.
a lot. It was really fun.
Awesome.